Good evening, everyone. The time is now 5:05. The Warwick Finance Committee is now in session. Before we begin, I'd like to make a general announcement that tonight's discussion in the Ordinance Committee on the solar is canceled. However, there will be discussion and vote on the moratorium. I said it correctly. Moratorium. I knew I said it wrong. On the moratorium during council. So the solar ordinance in the committee is canceled, and the discussion on the other part is going to happen during council. Thank you. As soon as it came off my lips, I said, that isn't right. It's just my memorandum. Okay. Item number one. First of all, good evening to everyone, and thank you. Item number one is bid number 2022-017, purchase of Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles. Major Sullivan, good evening. I'm sorry, hold on one sec. I don't think your mic is on.
Good evening, Andy Sullivan, Major, Warwick Police Department.
Oh, yeah.
The police department went out to bid for up to 14 new Ford police vehicles under bid number 2022-017. This bid called for 14 2021 or current model year unmarked Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles.
Major, I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt for a sec. We cannot hear you. If you could come closer to the microphone or...
How's this?
That's much better. Thank you.
Too tall. Do you like me to start over?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
We received a total of 5 bid packages from the following 3 vendors: Tasker Ford, Colonial Ford, and MHQ. Tasker Ford provided only 1 bid with no alternative bids. Their bid was the same for both delivery and non-delivery of the police vehicles. Both Colonial Ford and MHQ provided 2 bids, the original bid and an alternative bid. Each bid also contained 2 prices, one for delivery and one for non-delivery of the police vehicles. Tasker's bid was substantially higher than both Colonial Ford and MHQ and was eliminated. The alternate bid that both Colonial Ford and MHQ provided was for stock vehicles and does not have the necessary safety equipment and features included that we are looking for. We were left with the original bids submitted by Colonial Ford and MHQ. The department is recommending that the bid be awarded to MHQ for the package labeled as Note 6 in your packages. Total amount, if approved, is $664,410.88 and will be funded by utilizing lease purchase funds, code 499-0449. Prior to submittal, this purchase was discussed and approved by the city administration and the finance director.
Thank you, Major. So again, just to reiterate, this is coming out of the capital lease budget code 499-0449, which again, as you mentioned, this was unanimously approved by this body for this purpose to update our fleets of fire, police, and city vehicles.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Major.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from members of the committee? Are there any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaur.
Thank you, Chairman. Major, so MHQ has provided 2 bids. It looks to me that the specs, at least as outlined, are equivalent. So why are you recommending the vehicle for $664,000 versus the vehicle for $652,000?
This is the with the equipment that the police department is seeking, and it's with the delivered price also.
So is there a difference in equipment that's being provided for $652,000 versus what's being provided for $664,000?
Yes, sir. The favorable bid, or the bid that we're seeking, provides additional safety equipment, including police perimeter alert. So that's if the officer is in a parking lot at night and somebody approaches on foot or on bicycle, for example, there's an alert system that will notify them in this day and age, which is a very advantageous add-on. Pre-collision assist with pedestrian detection. That will also help reduce accidents. Police engine idle. That's a feature that allows the engine to idle without a key, kind of similar to a remote start, but with no key or any other accessories needed. And also rear camera on demand, which again will also help reduce accidents.
And none of those items that you just mentioned are included in the vehicle for 652,000?
No, that's in the bid that we are seeking. And it also includes additional features above and beyond Colonial, such as an interior dome light lamp, which is utilized every single night by officers on the road that are doing their reports and reviewing material in their cars. Radio features, special service group, steering wheel tilt, leather wrap steering wheel, deflector plate, and set of 4 heavy-duty 18-inch full-face wheel covers with metal clips.
So those items that you just mentioned are not included in the vehicle for 652,000?
That's correct. They could not get those features in that bid.
So all of those features you just mentioned, which were, I don't know, probably a dozen to a dozen and a half of additional features, are in the vehicle for 664,000, but not in the vehicle for 652,000.
That's correct. Not necessarily everything, but in whole, most of those items are not included in that other bid.
Okay, I appreciate that explanation because that does make sense to me, and it seems to me that on the face of it, you've gotten some pretty good value for $12,000, but thank you for explaining that to me, making it clear. Thank you, Major.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you. Item number 2, bid 2022-062. Thank you, Chief, or I apologize, Major. Fire apparatus 1500 GPM pumper. Chief McMichael, good evening.
Good evening, Chief McMichael for the Warwick Fire Department. The fire department is requesting, I'm a better height than the major for this microphone, I think. The fire department is requesting a 612 alteration of contract for bid 2022-062. Fire apparatus for a 1,500 gallon per minute pumper to increase the spending authority an additional $498,837 to Greenwood Emergency Vehicles of North Attleboro, Mass. In August, at the August council meeting, the Finance Committee and the City Council voted to award this contract for one pumper at a cost of $498,837. And in September, the fire department was notified that it was awarded an $899,392 FEMA Assistance to Firefighter grant for the purchase of an aerial ladder truck. Consequently, Mayor Picozzi agreed to the fire department's request to alter this bid from the purchase of one pumper to 2 pumpers per the bid specifications. Funds for this request will be expended from budget account 4990449 capital lease purchase.
Thank you, Chief. And I want to say this for a clarification and compliment to you, your department, and to the administration. So what happened is we approved, because I had to call and verify all this, we approved the purchase of a pumper with the understanding that we also had a need within the fleet of a ladder truck. The fire department and the members of the fire department got trained in on their time and created a grant committee that's been bringing us a lot of equipment. I know that we had the senators, the federal delegation here twice for equipment, and they went ahead and got a $900,000 ladder truck that's going to come into your fleet. That is costing the city, correct me if I'm wrong, zero money. for the actual ladder truck. There may be some additional costs afterwards.
There will be some cost to the city for the ladder truck.
Yep.
The ladder truck is almost 1.2 million for
Yep.
this truck. Roughly 900,000 is paid for from this federal grant that you alluded to. And I have to say, we are very fortunate and grateful to our grant committee for the work they do, much of it on their own time to apply for these grants, and they do a fantastic job of it. So the vast majority of that ladder truck is going to be paid for from the federal grant, which freed up a considerable amount of money from the lease purchase of account, which allowed us the opportunity to acquire, seek approval for this second pumper. And by doing that, we also capture this year's pricing versus the price increase that we are expecting to see of 5%. So a few months from now, this same truck will cost us about another $30,000 more.
Agreed. And so again, with the compliment to you and your leadership team, that you were able to work with the grant committee, get this ladder truck, and then compliment to the administration, the mayor, and to your leadership team again for having the ability to talk and work it out, and definitely with the cooperation and the hard work and the numbers knowledge of Mr. Schaefer, that you guys were able to once again get another pumper, a much needed pumper for this department, and therefore modernize the department a little more for direct services to our constituents. So I'm excited about this. I can't tell you what that means to know that. I think that in the last year and a half, the grants committee of this department has brought in, and you can correct me, Chief, about 1.5, possibly more $1 million. The re-equipment of all the hoses, and then they had the additional equipment, and
Roughly about close to $2.5 million.
so I was off $1 million. I apologize. $2.5 million in equipment that was brought in through grants and grant writing to the city direct services.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Members of the committee have any questions or comments? Members of the council? Members of the council? Members of the public? Members of the public? Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you.
The next item is 2022-164. Original equipment manufacturers parts for various police vehicles. Welcome back, Major Sullivan.
Thank you. The police department went out to bid for original equipment manufacturer parts, also known as OEM, for various police vehicles under bid number 2022-164. We received 2 bid responses, one each from Tasker Ford and Factory Motor Parts. The police department is recommending that the bid for the OEM parts be awarded to Tasker Ford. Factory Motor Parts did not properly fill out the bid specification sheet, and therefore they were disqualified. The department is requesting $85,000 for a 1-year contract commencing on 11/18/21 through 11/17/22. Funding for these purchases would be made with Police Budget Code 30-330, Auto and Vehicle Maintenance, and Code 76-358, Insurance Proceeds.
Thank you so much, Major. Questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Major, and I realize this didn't happen on your watch, but do you have any idea why this is coming to us so late?
That's where I do not know.
Councilman, I can answer that. As you know, I did make the call, seeing that I was part of the committee, the finance committee, that agreed to the within 60-day requirement. Major Lima, as we all know, Major Michaelitis retired. Major Lima took over, and now Major Sullivan is filling in for Major Lima. And it's just a matter of transition of personnel and catch up. And so I, as the chairman of this committee, felt it was absolutely fine that we move forward, and I was content with the request. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess the beat goes on. Major, I'm looking at the Tasker Group pricing. Never mind. I answered the question myself. Thank you, Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Questions from members of the public? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Major. Next is repairs to compressor equipment at Thayer Warburn, bid number 2021-363. Hi, Christy.
Good evening. Public Works is requesting a 612 to this award in the amount of $60,000 for the ongoing repairs at the Thayer Warburton Arenas in the mechanical compressor room. Would cap this request at $210,000.
Thank you, Christy. Any questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw?
Christie, obviously, there's a lot of repairs that are necessary and have become necessary for Thayer Warburton. My question is, how is it the company that's servicing these items that have been doing this for quite a long time now, how is it that these things are not noticed or determined early on? It's just every time we turn around, there's more things that are coming up that needs to be repaired.
So during the previous administration, there was someone else that was in charge of maintaining these facilities, and there was a different vendor as well. What needed to be done, it would appear, was not what was being done. Once Mayor Picozzi tasked us with getting this facility back up and running where it should be, we requested this company come in, give us an estimate, because they are very familiar with the compressor room. There were a lot of issues that they came across, a lot of things that until you open up a compressor, you don't know, how much damage is inside and that kind of thing. So this company has been very good to us. They've stayed within the parameters. We do still have more work to do, as well as on the second compressor rack that runs the Warburton. So that the $60,000 request should finish Thayer, and then let us break down Warburton and do the maintenance on that we should have done previously.
So this new company that's doing the repairs to the compressor, had they been involved with any of the previous repairs recently on this compressor?
They were involved up until probably early 2019. And then there was another company that was awarded the bid, and that company didn't necessarily do, as far as we can tell, what should have been done.
So the company that was doing this service in 2019 did not find or identify or analyze all of the problems with this
Right.
compressor. And the new company that the current administration brought in was able to do a complete analysis of this compressor and determine all of the things that need to be done to this compressor at one time, instead of keep coming back and back and back. And we found this and we found that. I think that's what we're saying now.
This new company, who's not a new company to me, because I dealt with them previously, just by the way the machinery was running, the knocking in the compressors and things like that, they can tell. They have an idea of what's going on inside. Right now, Thayer's only running on one compressor. The other one is still dismantled. The crankshaft had to go out. It had to be machined down because the bearings scored it so bad. So we are waiting still for that to be put back together. And we've run into a few other, miscellaneous service items that needed to be addressed as well. So it's not, I think it was more of a lack of preventative maintenance and repairs over the last couple of years. And now we are essentially paying the price for it.
Well, it appears that it was a good decision to change from the previous Maytag repairman to the new folks that you have here now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Oh, I apologize, Councilman Foley. Thank you.
Just a quick question. Is there a timetable for getting the rinks up and running?
They're actually both up and running right now. We've had some issues with Thayer, just because it's only running on one compressor. The weather's not helping, that type of thing. But we're okay now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Once again, any questions from members of the public? Any questions from members of the public? Thank you. Bid number 2021, thank you, Christie. 169, structural firefighting coats and pants. Chief, good evening.
Good evening. Jason Umanauer, the Assistant Chief of the Fire Department. The Fire Department is requesting a 612 alteration of contract for bid 2021-169, structural firefighting coats and pants. We're looking to increase the spending authority to Fire Tech and Safety, an additional $59,000 with no change in the contract dates. This request, if approved, will increase the award for a new total of $144,000. The reason for the request is the gear manufacturers and vendors have notified us of at least an 8% increase in the cost of materials. So when we're going out to bid currently for turnout gear, we expect at least an 8%, if not higher, increase in the cost of those sets of turnout gear. So what the fire department would like to do, we're budgeted for another 36 sets in this current fiscal year. We'd like to buy those sets under this current contract at the current pricing, lock it in before the bid expires, and then award the bid for the next, when it comes in next month, award that bid for the next fiscal year. So we want to try to get that, capture that savings while the contract is still effective.
Thank you, Chief. So it seems like, and it's interesting from my conversations over the last couple of weeks with department heads and others that we are preparing possibly for supply shortages, and the department heads and the departments are planning ahead on how to handle either a supply shortage or a delivery shortage, or, I can tell you, this is nothing to do with what your job is, but I can tell you, I've been driving a loaner now for 4 weeks because I just brought my wife's car in to get the exhaust fixed, and the parts haven't come in yet. So I've been driving a loaner on something so simple as an exhaust. So, and I hope you're grateful to that, because otherwise you'd hear me coming all the way from Ward 1. But anyways, with that said, I thank you for your looking ahead and thinking ahead, and this is also a cost-saving measure that you're taking, so thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Councilman Foley.
Thank you, Chief. How is the current class of recruits progressing?
The current recruits are in, I believe, week 5 of their academy. Those guys already had gear ordered from the previous fiscal year's contract. This current year bid,
Was that again?
they're progressing very well. We're still at the 23 recruits that we started with. So
Beautiful. And what is the expected graduation date?
they're expected to come on the department January 16th, 2022.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any questions from members of the committee? Members of the council? Members of the council? Members of the public? Oh, I apologize. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, I understand that this would be for an additional, let's see if I can find my place. If I recall correctly, it was an additional 36 units. And approximately how many units do we typically order in a year?
Typically, 36 to 40 is typically what we order in order to keep the gear on a cycle so that it doesn't expire. Gear is only rated for 10 years maximum. After 10 years, we have to take the gear out of service per an NFPA. Typically, we don't get 10, the amount of work we do, we don't typically get 10 years out of it. We typically average about 6 or 7 years out of a set of gear. So we got to make sure we keep it on a cycle so that we don't have a lot of gear on the same fiscal year.
All makes sense to me. Thank you for your foresight on this, essentially getting in next year's order at today's rates. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the council? Members of the public? Members of the public? Thank you all. That concludes the items that are above the required discussion. And now we move on. If there's any item that a member of the committee on the bid package would like to discuss. Is there any item on the bid package a member of the council would like to discuss?
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President.
Thank you. It's the last one, 2022-159.
2022-159, Mr. President?
Yes, please. It's the last one on the docket.
Roger that. Is there any other member of the council that would like to discuss any items? Councilman Lattisaur.
Thank you, Chairman. 2022-165, please.
That is found on page 56, various replacement of automotive parts for police vehicles. Anything further?
No.
Thank you. Is there any other item that members of the council would like to discuss on the bid package? Members of the public, are there any items on the bid package that they would like to see have discussed? Is there any item on the bid package that members of the public would like to have discussed? Seeing none, we will begin at bid number 2022-165, found on page 56. Various replacement of automotive parts for police department. Councilman Lattisaur.
Thank you, Chairman. So in looking at this, I see where Action Auto Parts is on the top of the list for a recommended vendor, but yet they did not provide any list price for any of the items that I see on either page 58, 59, or 60. And I was wondering what the reason is for that. All they show is a discount. And the discount doesn't mean anything to me if I don't know what the starting price is.
Within the bid packages is found on page 56.
Yes, sir. I do see that. I don't have an answer in front of me right now. However, I can. It doesn't do you any good, but I'm sure they are competitive to the other bidders, but with the better discount.
Mr. Chairman, East Coast Terminals, they didn't provide any list price either.
I couldn't hear you.
I said East Coast Terminals did not provide any list prices either. And the only one that, well, Potter Wraps didn't provide a list price.
Thank you. Thank you. I see that Ms. Pesca walked up to the microphone.
This might be helpful in regards to action that the first vendor you were speaking with. I see that on page 12, they did provide a website which would provide us with all the pricing pages and so forth. I apologize for this. I think in years past, I did have a different bid specialist at that point. I think what we were doing at that point was giving you a sampling of the website. I did not take that extra step with my new person and and provide you a sampling of it, but they did provide a website for the police department to view this so they could analyze that discount. Page 12, oh, I'm sorry, page 59. Yep. View pricing and place orders online at www. On the bottom of that list.
Councilman, can I got to interrupt. Is your microphone on, if you don't mind me
No,
asking?
it is
Oh,
now.
okay.
I think somebody might have muted it.
There it is. There it is.
So are you suggesting that we're supposed to go to a website and look up the list prices on all of these items and then do the math problem to come up with the net cost will be to the taxpayers?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. I was just trying to give some additional information that they provided it this way. And again, I would have to go back to last year. I think what I did last year was give you a sampling, which I did not do this year.
Well, I think what, at least some of us that are on the council now, were on the council back in the day when we had requested that the list prices be shown with the discounts and ending up at the net prices for these items to cost us. Right now, we have no clue what any of these items are going to cost the taxpayers. And again, I stand with my respectful request to the committee that this thing be held until such time as the department provides us with what the list prices are, minus the discounts, and what the net costs are on these items. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Council. Oh, I'm sorry, Major.
Sir,
Go
if I
ahead.
may, I do have attachments that do list prices for wraps, also known as Napa, and East Coast terminals. I'm not sure if you have that in your packet.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I have in my packet, I don't know if you have it on your end somewhere. I do have pricing for wraps, which is Napa, and East Coast terminals.
I have, thank you, Councilman. And advanced on items 1 through 25, they haven't provided any list prices. They did on items 26 through 29. Nothing else from advanced. And on East Coast has not provided list prices on anything. They provide us with a 42% discount, and it says, see attached price sheets. So I guess we're supposed to go through each and every one of these items to determine what the pricing will be. This is not what the city council has approved for a format on these items. We passed this, or we have put this policy in place because under previous administrations, things were getting approved when Nobody had a clue what the cost was. But 52% discount is better than a 48% discount when you have no clue what the starting number is. There's absolutely no business sense to that whatsoever. Again, I repeat, I'm respectfully requesting this be held until we're provided the information that will allow us to make a responsible financial decision regarding not only this issue, but any other issue that comes up with the same type of problems.
Thank you, Councilman. I would, understanding what the councilman's saying, I'm going to approach this a little differently, where I know that being the person that the councilman mentioned earlier that was on this committee when we made those requirements, but at the same time, I can't help but go back to my personal experience of the last 4 weeks, where, you know, we have 3 vendors on this, and quite honestly, I really think a lot of these bids are going to be coming before us again within the next couple months, where we have to open up to more vendors due to some of the challenges we as a country, but especially we as a municipality, are going to be facing when it comes to maintaining our fleet and getting the equipment. So I feel, though the councilman does bring up a valid point, and he's absolutely right, I'm going to actually vote to move forward on this personally, as I want us to be prepared, because I'm nervous that a 2-week delay will result in a 6-month stalemate with receiving parts and keeping our city moving, especially looking at how we're already in a delay in getting our new vehicles and getting the fleet that we are purchasing. I don't want us to fall behind the 8 ball. So as a taxpayer, I do advocate and I do work to do the best deal, but at the same time, as someone that is entrusted to make sure city services continue, I feel that I'm just going to move forward on this. But for clarification, Councilman, you wanted a PCR on this?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Assuming that the committee is not going to vote to table it, then I would request a PCR.
Thank you, Councilman. And I want to end discussion first before the committee makes the, but thank you. Councilman Gebhardt.
Just maybe a compromise here. So there are some, and Ms. Peshka pointed out that, you know, there's hundreds, thousands of auto parts, and usually what she would do is provide a sampling so we could see, you know, maybe the most common ones. If we do move forward on this tonight, I think it'd be helpful for the small sampling that some of the other vendors provided, if we could see as a follow-up a comparison to the ones that did not provide that same sampling, just so we can get comfortable. And if in that time between now and our next meeting, we find that things are way out of whack, then we could revisit it. But otherwise, that wouldn't slow you down. It's a little bit of extra administrative work, but I think that would make at least myself, I won't speak for anyone else, feel comfortable that we made the right decision.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman.
So what we have now, speaking to Councilman Gebhardt's comments, is there is a bidder in here who has provided some numbers on list parts. There are bidders who provided no numbers. What you have is a situation now where one vendor, that vendor's numbers are now known. Well, I would love to be able to bid on something when I know what my competition is bidding. I would love to be able to have that luxury of knowing what their price is. That is wrong. It is wrong to use that baseline for anything. In my opinion, it is wrong to vote on this when you have no idea what the costs are. None.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Foley.
Major, I just point of clarification, I guess. Before you submitted the proposal to us, you did a cost comparison between these bidders. Am I correct on that?
Yes, sir. Our fleet manager, Mike Grant, went extensively through all the bids and came up with these 3 and split the bid among the three.
And the recommendation that is in front of us came from that analysis by him.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion from members of the council?
Mr. Chairman,
Excuse me one moment, any other further discussion from members of the council? Councilwoman Travis.
Yes. I just heard Councilman Foley mention the fact that the major did check on all those other bidders. My concern is we don't see those numbers, though. That's the problem I have also. I agree with Councilman Lattisaw that those numbers are not in the book. So how can we compare them? And the fact that you can't go out, we should have the extension so we could see the numbers and do some comparison. We'll probably come back with the same answer maybe, but we haven't seen them. And so that's the problem I have.
Thank you. Any other members? Councilman Lattiser, thank you.
so basically down the same path, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect to the department, perhaps the department has all of those individual numbers. We do not. And I highly doubt anyone in this chamber would go to any store and buy anything without knowing what the list price is, because they tell you, we're going to give you a 70% discount. And here it is. I don't think anybody in this room would go and purchase anything. And I can tell you for certain, there's no way that I'm going to support this item or any other item that doesn't provide us the simple business courtesies and responsibilities of knowing what the list price is. The discount is useless unless you know what the list price is, because you can't come to the net cost. And if you can't come to the net cost, how can anybody vote on buying something when you have no clue what it's going to cost? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, if I may, really quick,
Major.
just regarding some other companies, the other three that did not, that we do not choose to go with, factory auto parts did not include any percentage off their regular part list. So that was one disqualifier. O'Reilly and Advanced offer a smaller percentage discount. Granted, not on a, we don't have that known figure in front of us. And also, it's opinion of our garage personnel that those parts from those companies are inferior to the other companies that we choose to go with on the bid.
Thank you, Major. Is there any discussion from any other members of the council? Councilman Sinapi. Please wait till you get to the microphone, Councilman.
Unless this is an imminent need, I would suggest we hold this, but that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Any discussion from members of the public? Members of the public? Okay, I will take a motion.
Move to hold.
I will second that, and may I ask for a PCR?
13521.
13521. Thank you. Bid 2022-165 is now PCR 13521. (135-21).
Chairman, when did you hold it till?
Yes. November 1st.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next item up for discussion is bid 2022-159. That is requested by the council president. That is found on page 175. Council President.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Director.
Good evening.
Just one question. It's mentioned in our booklet here that this is for a reprinting of correcting the annual consumer confidence report. Mistakes happen. I understand that. Just, we have a system in place now to double check, triple check these things before they go out?
That's correct. That's correct, Councilman. We went out to bid last March to get this out by July 1st. Back in September, the state rejected it. They want some additional language on water source. I pretty much mirrored it from the year before. It was identical. However, the DOH wanted some additional terminology in there. So that put us where we are today to put it back out to bid. Before we submitted to the Department of Health, I sent them a rough draft before I gave the printing company a go ahead. I never heard from them. Well, their excuse was they're short-staffed, as we all are. But we talked and discussed about mechanisms to put in place so this does not happen again. They will, in writing, verify before we put it out their printing company going forward. And I'm not putting all the blame on the state, but it's a learning process for my department also. So there are mechanisms in place. This will not happen again next year.
Excellent. So we have the process in place now, and if you need any help reaching out to the state on these things, feel free to contact us, and we will contact our representatives of the state. And I'm sure the Department of Health has lots of things on their plate, and we understand that as well. But this is good to have this in place, so going forward, we don't see too many of these coming in.
As time goes on, we've actually built a relationship with the Department of Health and really working well with them. So look forward to it.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is there any other discussion from members of the committee on bid 2022-159? Members of the council? Councilman Lattisaw.
Thank you, Chairman. So back in, I don't know, April or May, somewheres thereabouts, we had approved this monies for this confidence report to be done. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And how much was that for?
I think it was 10,300.
Close to 11,000, I think it was, right?
Yeah, roughly.
Okay. And this company that did this report, they're professionals at doing this report, correct?
That's correct.
No one from the city did this report, correct?
The city provides information to the imaging company what to put in there.
You provide information as they request?
No, they make up their CCR report with our information that we gather and give to them.
So they put together a list of data and questions they need answered and submit it to the department.
Yeah, this is just a basic printing company. It goes out to bid. It's not their expertise per se, but
Terry, we can't hear you.
We supply them with all the information they need to put in that report. They don't have a list. We supply them with what we want.
So when this report, let me back up. To your knowledge, has this report ever been denied or refused or erred in the past, to your knowledge?
Not under my tenure. I can't speak for my predecessor.
And the information that is provided to whatever that company, who was the company that did this initial report?
Graphic Images.
Who is it?
Graphic Images out of Connecticut.
Graphic Images did the report that was denied?
Correct.
Then why are we paying them to do it over again?
Graphic Images only puts in the report what we supply them. We did not supply them with the correct information that the state wanted.
We didn't supply them with the correct information, or they didn't ask for the information that was the reasoning why DOH, you said,
Correct.
denied this?
Yep.
So was it that we didn't provide them with the correct information, or was it they did not request the correct information?
The printing place does not request any information. They only print what we supply them. So it's the city's, it's my fault that we did not give them the correct information.
So if we're providing all of this information, why don't we do our own report?
It has to be certified by the EPA in the state.
So graphic images or image, the report that they compiled has to be certified by EPA?
That's correct. And the DOH.
So who's doing the report? Is it graphic images or is it us? If they're just asking questions or we're providing all the information and then they put it together in a report, what do we need them for?
Well, they're the printing company. They have to print out the pamphlet to send out to 27,000 customers.
They do what, please?
They print out 27,000 pamphlets with that information to every single consumer that we have.
They do that.
That's correct. The information is compiled between Providence Water, Kent County Water, our sampling, and then that's what goes into the report. But this time here, I asked them, I said, I mirrored it exactly the way we did it last year. And come to find out, they don't comb through every report. Warwick was a lucky one this year. And they want us to provide additional information on water source.
So if EPA, if I understand it correctly, I think you said EPA reviews the report from graphic and then sends it to DOH?
No, first the DOH approves it, then ships it off to the EPA.
So it never made it to EPA?
Probably not this year, no.
I'm sorry?
No.
So this was denied at the Department of Health?
That's correct.
So if there were only, how many items did they not approve?
There was a couple. One was a water source that they want residents to have more information where the water is coming from. The second was when I took over, we were on a tier 2 violation with the state of Department of Health. It was pretty much an audit. I failed to list that as a violation. I wasn't aware I had to. I listed other violations that we had. I wasn't aware I had to list that other tier 2 violation.
And did Graphic Image, have they produced and distributed this report to every customer we have in the city of Warwick?
That's correct. That's by contract. That's what
They've already done that
that's correct.
before it was approved by the Department of Health?
Like I said, I sent it off when the graphic company finished the final result. I forwarded it to the Department of Health. We had a certain deadline to meet by July 1st. I didn't hear from them. Assumed it was okay. It was the same as the year before. They came back in September that they denied it.
So once again, Graphic Image distributed this report before it was either approved or denied.
I gave Graphic Image the go-ahead to produce a report so I can meet the deadline by July 1.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I myself gave Graphic Image the go-ahead to send out that report.
Without the approval of the Department of Health?
Well, the Department of Health doesn't approve it until after the July 1st deadline. I tried to get it out to them to see if there was any mistakes. I never heard from them, so I assumed there wasn't. So I sent the report in.
Was Graphic Image the company that produced the previous year's report?
As I stated a little while ago, yes, they were.
What?
As I stated previously, yes, they were.
No, what I'm asking is, maybe I don't understand you clearly. Graphic Image produced the report that was not accepted.
Correct.
Was Graphic Image the company that produced the report prior year that was accepted?
That was not under my tenure. I'm not sure who was that was.
Because if they were, then they should have had the blueprint right in front of them, what to follow. So I think it's important for us to know whether or not Graphic Image did the previous report that was accepted by the Department of Health, because they would have had the blueprint in front of them. We're paying them to do a job, right? We're paying them to do a job, And if they were the company that did the job prior and it was accepted, they knew the blueprint. The fact that we may have omitted some bits of information unintentionally, to me, it would seem that the company we're paying to do this report, that is professionals at doing this report and compiling these numbers, would know that something was not provided to them, that they needed in order to get it approved.
Right, so sorry, I think there's a little bit of a disconnect. So
There was a little bit of what?
a disconnect.
All right, excuse me. I'm sorry, excuse me. So, Councilman, hold on. Thank you. Please identify yourself and then continue. Thank you.
Sorry, Eric Earls, Public Works Director. This vendor is a printing company. That's what they do. They print what we give them. If you give them a brochure that has a misspelled title, they're going to print that misspelled title. That's what they do. That's what happened here. We provided them with information that wasn't 100% accurate. They did what they were supposed to do, reproduced that, and sent it to people. Terry, Director DiPetrillo, after the fact, was made aware that it was not correct information. So we are now here to use this vendor again to reproduce the document with the correct information and resend it out.
Director, so if I may, Director DiPetrillo, is to you as well. You sent the information, you put together a report, you had a deadline of, give me the date, July 1st, was it? July 1. You sent it to the printer. The printer's job is to print it up. They printed it up. You called the Rhode Island Department of Health, and Department of Health did not get back to you till after your deadline to get this mailed out. And then they said, we want more information added to it, thus requiring us to reprint this. And anyone who goes to the DMV can understand that this is the kind of thing that can happen at the state. Or anyone dealing with the DEM can understand this is, I see a bill, Vicente. Anyone dealing with DEM can see this is the kind of stuff that goes on at the state. Thank you. So our process was done. We got the notice late. And so now we have to reprint it with the corrections that the Department of Health requires us to do.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, may I continue, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilman.
Thank you. So, Eric, you made it perfectly clear that Graphic Image was not the facilitator of the information. They were merely a printing company that was printing what we provided them. Okay. Now, with the comments that the chair just made, I think it brings another significance to why we need to do these things in a timely manner, so we don't get put under the gun, so we don't have to make decisions because the pressure's on. I think this is a good example as to why we need to get these things done in a timely manner. It could be before a contract expires or because of something like this. So I do understand now clearly what took place, and thank you for clarifying that for me. I'm all set, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any other questions, comments from members of the council? Questions, comments from members of the public pertaining to bid 2022-159? Sir. Hold on one sec. We're going to have the Sergeant at Arms check that out, Phil.
Philip Durkle, Ward 4, Warwick. How about we discuss the root cause? The root cause was the data sent in was incorrect, either misspellings or whatever it was. We have to spend another additional $10,000 to get the report done again and have the same company reprint it. How about talking about the root cause? The root cause was the data was not sent in correctly. Am I right or wrong? Don't respond because you're not able to respond. Just think about it that way. Look at the root cause and correct the root cause. Then we won't be in these situations going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the public? Thank you. At this time, that concludes the consent calendar. If I may have a vote on the consent calendar.
Second.
I have a motion for favorable. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Council President?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Just want to make a few announcements as we move forward. The next committee that will be standing is the Ordinance Committee. The public hearing on the solar ordinance has been canceled. There is public comment later this evening after 7 p.m. And there's also a proposal for a moratorium on solar that will not be held during committees. That will be held after 7 o'clock at the regular council meeting. So we just wanted to let everybody know that will come up, but it will not be in committees. It will be at the full council meeting starting at 7 o'clock. There's a few things, and then we will move forward on that. So up next is the Ordinance Committee, followed by the Public Safety Committee, Intergovernmental Committee, and Appointments Committee. Not all have.
Mr. President, we have one item on our agenda. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to make the announcement, seeing that we exceeded our time. Thank you. Final item on the Finance Committee is PCR 97-20, resolution regarding ratification of the Cooper building lease. Councilman Sinapi. You asked for 3 months? Yeah. Okay. Per request to the sponsor, can I have a motion to hold until December 19th?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion, I have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The time is now 6:07 and the Finance Committee is closed. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I think you had said hold till December 19th. Well, actually, the councilman had asked for a 3-month extension.
Yeah, we don't know the dates in January, so we're going to hold
Okay.
till then and he can make a decision from
Just for
there.
clarification, it's December 20th, though, according to my calendar. Sorry?
We don't know what days we're going to have the meetings in 2022.
No, it's December 20th, not the 19th.
That is correct.
Oh, do we have to re-vote on that, Solicitor?
It was held to the last meeting in December. We're December 20th.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for
welcome.
that. What do I got?
Are you good? I'm going to wait.
It doesn't matter for committee.
Ordinance will convene at 6:10 PM. First on our agenda is PCO 6-20 Sub B, an ordinance relative to amendment of the Warwick zoning ordinances, regulations for the installation of solar energy systems. This one's under me. At the request of the administration, this is being withdrawn, so I'd move to withdraw. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCO 2321, ordinance in regards to 12 no parking either side, May 15th through September 15th, to be placed on the median on Strand Avenue. This is Councilwoman Travis, second passage.
I have to abstain on these votes. Council President, could you move them for me?
Yes, ma'am. I move favorable action for second passage. I request.
Any questions by members of the committee? Any questions by members of the council? Any questions by members of the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is PCO 24-21, ordinance in regards to erecting no parking either side of the street signs at the following locations: Bay Avenue at intersection of Stender Boulevard / Burr Avenue, Bay Ace probably Avenue on pole numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, Burr Avenue at Wade Street, no parking here to corner. This is Councilwoman Travis, second passage.
On behalf of, I would like to respectfully request favorable action for second passage.
Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Members of the council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCO-25-21, ordinance in regards to erecting truck and trailer parking only and tow zone at the entrance of Oakland Beach boat ramp and get ready area. Councilwoman Travis, second passage. I'm guessing Council President McAllister?
Correct. I respectfully request favorable action for second passage.
Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Members of the council? And any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCO 2821, ordinance in regards to tow zone on Stender Avenue connecting Oakland Beach and Burr Avenue. Councilwoman Travis, second passage. Council President McAllister?
I respectfully request favorable action for second passage.
Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Any questions or comments from members of the council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I remember saying get ready area. I just have one left. Last, we have PCO 32-21, an ordinance in regards to the placement of no parking either side signs on the entire roadway of Engel Court and on Narragansett Bay Avenue from Engel Court to Warwick Neck Avenue. This is Councilman Lattiser. It would be first passage.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have a traffic study to accompany this favorably, and I would respectfully request favorable action.
Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Members of the council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move favorable action.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And unless I missed something, Lynn, I believe that is everything for ordinance as of 6:15 PM.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Up next will be the Public Safety Committee.
Public Safety Committee meeting is called to order at 6:15. First item is minutes. There are none. First item is PCR 125-21, a resolution regards to a four-way stop sign on Clifton and Leroy.
Mr. Chairman.
Solicitor.
Thank you. This item has been presented in its proper form, however, with an incorrect title. So my recommendation is to hold the item for this evening, and it'll be corrected before you for the November 1st meeting.
Motion to hold.
I have no objections to that, Chairman.
I'm sorry.
I have no objections to that.
Thank you. Motion to hold.
Second.
All in favor?
Move to hold to November 1st. Aye.
November 1st. Next item, PCR 130-21, a resolution regards to removal of no parking signs on the north side of Menitonomo Drive, east of pole number 20. For action, Councilman Foley. There were traffic studies done for this, and the traffic studies support the removal. Motion for favorable action.
Move favorable action.
I'm sorry. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, asking for a motion for favorable action.
Move favorable action.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 3, PCR 131-21, a resolution regards to erecting three-way stop sign at the intersection of Edge Hill Road and Brewster Drive. Any Councilman McElroy?
I move favorable action. I have a favorable.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Mr. Durkle.
Philip Durkle, Edge Hill Road, Warwick. These stop signs will be outside my home on Edge Hill Road. We need something to slow the traffic down that's coming through down Brewster. We are a cut through. There's a red light at the end of Brewster or at the end of Edge Hill that enters Warwick Avenue. That's one of two, one on Edge Hill, Edge Hill, and one on Church Avenue. So the cars that come through there go through at a pretty good clip. We have a lot of younger families that have moved into our neighborhood with young children. A lot of hockey nets, a lot of basketball hoops on the road. So we need something to slow the traffic down. So I am in favor of this PCO. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the public? Comments from the public? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I would like to remind the city council and the public that many traffic studies have denied requests for the placement of stop signs, including requests that I have made, because the purpose of the stop signs is not for slowing down traffic. The purpose of stop signs is supposed to be only to prevent collision of vehicles or similar public safety issues. So I would just briefly ask Councilman McElroy if there is a reason other than the slowing of traffic for the placement of the three-way stop sign.
Yes, it's for the safety of the children in the area. That is not a 90-degree angle at that. Don't see, and they don't slow down.
That makes perfect sense to me. This has my support. Thank you.
Comments from the committee? The council? The public? Seeing none, motion for favorable action?
Move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That concludes the public safety hearing at 6:21.
Up next will be the Intergovernmental Committee.
It is now 6:22 and Intergovernmental Committee is now in session. There are no acceptance of minutes from previous meetings. The first item of the agenda is PCR 133-21, a resolution to the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management approving the City of Warwick's submission to the 2022 Recreation Acquisition and Development Grant Program. Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I respectfully request favorable action on this. This is an application that the city is doing for recreational grants. We do this each year. There was 3 parks that have been identified, and we are leveraging, hopefully, to get this grant, which would leverage additional grants that we have gotten. One of the projects is the new playground that's going to be built right, where are we? And right here, that side. Clegg Field is another one, and I believe there is one in Ward 1 as well that the 3 applications are for. So I respectfully ask, this is just a letter of support from the City Council for this, which is a requirement to get the grant. So it's part of the application process, and I'm asking for favorable action.
Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Favorable action?
Having a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is now 6:24 and the Intergovernmental Committee is in adjournment.
The next committee is the Public Properties, Land Use Committee and Community Affairs. It is not eligible to begin until 6:40 p.m., so we will be at ease for about 16 minutes.
The City Council Committee on Public Properties, Land Use, and Community Affairs comes to order at 6:41 p.m. This will just be a minute if we can hold the conversations. So 6:41 p.m. Meeting starts. There are no minutes to accept. We have one item up for second passage. PCO 23A21, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Warwick, RWR Real Estate Investment Group, LLC. Council President McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I respectfully request passage for second passage on this. We had a public hearing on that. It is supported by the neighborhoods, and I respectfully request second passage, favorable action.
Thank you. Do we have any comment, questions from members of this committee? Members of the council? Members of the public? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Favorable action.
All in favor? Aye. The City Council Committee concludes at 6:42 p.m.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That concludes our committee's meetings this evening. We cannot start the city council meeting until 7 p.m. So we will be back at 7 p.m. where we will do welcome everybody back. So we will see you at 7 p.m. And again, there is public comment this evening. There's a sign-up sheet on that podium there. Please see the Sergeant of Arms if you have any questions, and we will see you back here at 7.
I am. I'm complaining about something.
Good evening, everyone. It is 7:02. At this time, I call the City Council meeting for October 18th, 2021 to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Mr. Foley?
Here.
Mr. Gephardt?
Here.
Mr. Howe?
Here.
Mr. Lattiser?
Here.
Mr. McElroy?
Here.
Mr. Ricks?
Here.
Mr. Snappy?
Here.
Ms. Travis?
Here.
9 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I'd like to call on Councilman Foley to introduce our special guests who are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Councilman Foley.
Thank you. It is my honor and privilege to introduce you to my oldest grandchild, my granddaughter Kaylee Foley, who will lead us in the pledge. She's escorted tonight by my son, Army veteran, Ranger veteran, Greg Foley, and his service dog, Lexi.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the balls bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Great job, guys. Thank you so much for leading us. And Mr. Foley, thank you for your service to our country. So thank you very much for joining us. So good evening again, everyone. I am going to request that we move a few things around this evening, barring any objections to my fellow council members. At this time, I would, unless there's objections, I would like to bring our other guests that are here this evening and from Remo. Is there any objections to moving them up at this time? Hearing none, I ask Councilman Howe if you can introduce our next guest this evening.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next guest is retired Command Sergeant Major of the United States Army, Dan Evangelista. He is a Vietnam veteran, as well as led his brigade or battalion, I believe, in to Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and brought all of his soldiers back safely and with all their equipment, which is also very important. And the Sergeant Major is representing the Rhode Island Military Organization, and he will discuss that. Thank you. Sergeant Major.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. Mr. President, members of the City Council, ladies and gentlemen and citizens of the great city of Warwick, thank you for asking me to speak here tonight about REMO, the Rhode Island Military Organization. REMO was organized in 2008 by 4 Iraqi Afghan vets, and I was supposed to be a mentor to them and probably right off into the sunset, but that never happened. You know, they went on to typically their, finished college and went on to their careers and everything. And I just happened to retire from the state of Rhode Island's Division of Veterans Affairs. I've been a veterans advocate since I graduated college in 1974 on the GI Bill for education. And I'm proud to say that I was asked by Tim, who kind of like took over Remo, if I would continue on with them. And Remo has two purposes. One is to operate the military lounge at the TF Green Airport. And I tell everyone who comes into the airport that they're in the city of Warwick, not Providence. So they'll know, when you should be getting the accolades, just like the city of Providence receives the accolades. The military lounge is for not only the men and women who wear the uniform now, but also veterans and their family members when they're traveling through TF Green. We've had over 15,000 visitors since 2014 who visit the lounge. The lounge is on the second floor of the airport, right around the corner from where the Delta ticket counter is. And the airport corporation was nice enough to give us one room, then they gave us another room. So we have and two rooms that we work with. And the furnishings at TF Green Airport were given to us by the Cardi Corporation, the Cardi boys. And they still continue to replace some of the furniture and everything. So they've been great to us. The state of Rhode Island, through their Office of Veteran Services, provides us with a grant every year. And Tim and I used to laugh because I said they will be paying for the food and drink of the lounge. And now I make them pay for, I asked them, and they granted us some of the insurance money that we received from them. It's not a large grant, but we're accountable for it. And I make sure, because I ran an agency for years with federal, state, and city dollars. So I know the responsibility that one has. And we do that well. We were closed in March of 2020, just like others who had to, cease their operations. And we opened up again finally on June 21st of this year. And I did a count the other day in my shift. I usually do the morning shift on Thursday. We're open 7 days a week, 3 shifts, 10 to 1, 1 to 4, 4 to 7. At one time, we were able to man every one of those shifts, but because of the pandemic, it's sometimes we're not available to the travelers. But that's okay because we're sticking to it, and we appreciate it. So I did a count from June 21st through the 4th of this month, and we've had over 600 visitors already. So it's a place where they want, where they come. Most of the time it's the younger military people, and you don't really have to give them that much. They have a nice place to respite, a nice place to do what they want to do, and most of the time they do just what you figure they're going to do. They're on their phones, they're on their electronics. So that's fine with us. So, and the other thing that Remo does, which I'm proud of, and I do it rather well. I've been at it for a number of years as a veterans advocate. I provide information to a lot of the residents here in Warwick. They're veterans of the federal, state, and local benefits that they're eligible for. One of them would be your tax exemption to them. That could be a benefit, but a lot has to do with service-connected compensation, the different pension programs, not only for the veterans, but for the survivors of veterans. Obviously, the GI Bill for education is so important I sell that, the current GI education bill, that is called the 9/11, post 9/11 GI Bill for education, is supposed to be as good as the World War II. Well, let me tell you, it's better than the one for World War II. So I'm proud to be able to say that we can expose to them what's going on here, not only here in Rhode Island, but to benefit them. And we've done a lot through this period of time, and I expect that when this pandemic is finally under control, we should be able to have more volunteers at the lounge because every shift is manned by a volunteer, and most of them are older individuals. So you're welcome to, if anyone is interested in becoming a volunteer at the Veterans Lounge, please, by all means, you can contact me. So I don't know how much more I can say about the lounge. Is that I'm proud to be able. I'm from East Providence, but I'm proud that I'm doing work here in Warwick, and I really believe. One of the things I tell people that Remo is at the lounge is that we're ambassadors for the state of Rhode Island, and I'm very comfortable saying that. And I'm proud and I'm privileged, and I'm available. So what I will do is I'll make sure all of you council people have my card and my number, and you can make referrals to me. So hopefully that'll be something else we can do. All righty.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate your service and your continued service to our military. So thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda, and I just want to give a quick roadmap of where we're going to head here, is I'm going to go back to the top, which is executive communications. We are going to have the finance director going to give a report on the budget. This is informational only, so he's just going to present this to us. If council members have any questions, or if members of the public have any questions, they can follow up with the mayor's office after the meeting. And then after that presentation, I'm going to request from the city council that we move up the last item on our agenda, which is under unanimous consent, PCO 3421. I'm going to request that we move that up to take that up next on the agenda. So that's the roadmap that we're looking to do at this time. So I would like to introduce Peter Schaefer, who is the finance director for the city of Warwick. Director Schaefer.
Well, I distributed to the mayor and the members of the council through Joanne my 3-page report here, and it's basically all good news. Revenues were better than expected. The tax sale that we held for the first time in 2 years, and I can't remember whether it was late May or early June, really emphasized our collection rate in property taxes. State aid, once it was replaced by Federal CARES Act funds, was more than expected. And the fall off in some of the hospitality business was not as bad as we thought, even in April, as air traffic recovered in April, May, and June. So although we were far significantly below where we've been benchmark a year before, it recovered substantially. And expenses, we had a mild winter. We had the CARES Act really covering our unemployment compensation for people who were laid off. Those are the two major things that happened. So when we passed the budget, the 22 budget in May, we also had amended our revenue estimates and had contemplated using American Rescue funds, lost revenues associated with the airport and the hospitality business, loss of investment earnings. We didn't have to use that money. Expenses and revenues came in better, so that we ran an operating surplus of $2.1 million without using American Rescue, without having to use any fund balance. And we will be receiving $39 million in American Rescue funds. We've already received over 19 million. And we will be working through the next budget cycle, as we pledged in May, and we pledged the infrastructure, sewer, water, broadband, a few other special items. We're going to be doing that again through the next budget cycle, public participation. The challenge to us in financial reporting, and I've talked to some of my colleagues in other cities and towns, is the rules for financial reporting of American Rescue. We did spend some money to call back employees that we'll be getting reimbursement from. We did spend money fixing the pool, that part of that will be reimbursable, anything that occurred after March 3rd of 2021. So we're working on those things. But in general, I think this is a pretty accurate look at where we'll end up when the audit is completed, hopefully in December, but certainly in the early winter.
Thank you very much, Director. And the Director, he had made his report public to everybody. So we appreciate you coming here and giving us the update on the city budget. And anytime you bring good news like that we're in a good situation, we like to hear that as well. So thank you very much, Director. At this time, are there any council members that have anything under general communications? Okay. Yes, Councilman Howe.
Thank you. I just want to announce that this coming Saturday, and anyone with grandchildren or children that would be interested, down at Sand Ponds, which is right off Post Road, Sand Pond Road, Puritan Drive, there's going to be the Spooky Spectacular. And it's basically right around Sand Pond, this little path that the local neighbors put together. And it's only $5 for the entire family to walk down the path. It raises money for the Save Sand Pond Defense Fund, but also to reinvest into that pond area. So I would encourage everyone, it's purely a neighborhood-driven, community-driven event that is very family-friendly and very positive. So I welcome anyone to do that. And Mr. President, at the end of the announcements, I do respectfully request a moment of silence for mine and some others, Commander, as well as our Secretary of State of the United States, General Colin Powell. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other council members for general communications? Hearing none, then we will honor that request and have a moment of silence for Secretary and General Colin Powell. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I have two requests to the City Council. First, is there any objection to moving PCO 34-21 to the top of the agenda? Is there any objections? Okay, hearing none, we will now move forward on that. My next question to the City Council, is there any objections to hearing PCO 34-21 under unanimous consent? This will require a roll call vote. So the clerk will call the roll to hear this item at this time.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lavisa?
Yes.
Mr. McElroy?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi? Yes. Ms. Travis?
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you very much. The vote is unanimous. We can now take up PCO 34-21. So good evening again, everyone. I thank you for taking the time to come out this evening. I want to thank the mayor, the city council, and the members of the public for their thoughts and ideas on this issue this evening. This is an issue that I know a number of us have heard from constituents from across the city, and we are going to discuss a part of that this evening. So, as you know, during this time, there has been a number of questions as to the structure around solar. What is before us this evening is a moratorium which will allow additional time for review and input from all the stakeholders, the people that are writing this then they may write legislation, the planning department, members of the public, all the stakeholders. Then after there has been time to review the current structure around this issue, if there is a new proposal to make changes, like in an ordinance, that will go through the proper channels and the proper process. So what we are looking at right now this evening is just a hold on all solar projects moving forward at this time. It would call for a 6-month moratorium unless a new ordinance has come up and is passed before the 6 months. I want to thank our attorneys and the city's attorneys who have done a great job drafting this legislation here this evening. This was not easy. This is a very controversial issue. There is a lot of case law that had to be reviewed, a lot of language that had to be reviewed, looking at what other cities and towns have done. A number of times, these types of moratoriums end up in court. So I just want to thank all the attorneys involved that have researched this and tried to come up with the best option available to get what is being proposed this evening. I want to stress that tonight, the only thing that is being discussed and voting on is this moratorium, this PCO 34-21. There can be and will be no discussion about any specific projects or potential projects. If or when a new ordinance is in place and the moratorium, if passed this evening, is lifted, all individual projects will have to go through the proper channels, and that is when they will be discussed in detail, and that is the proper place for these discussions. Again, we need to follow what is on the agenda this evening, so the only thing that we can discuss is this moratorium, PCO 34-21. There will be other public hearings, other meetings, other times to discuss specific projects. This does not, this unfortunately is not the place for that. We can only discuss this moratorium. One of the major issues that we talked about when discussing this, that if there is an appetite for the city council to do in the city of Warwick to do a moratorium, what would that look like? Again, I appreciate the attorneys for looking into this. Now, there was talk of no moratorium. There was talk of 3-month moratorium, 6-month moratorium, 9 months extended. We understand that there are some people that want no moratorium. We understand that there's some people that want a years-long moratorium. I believe that this is a good compromise to start off. This gives us some flexibility, that's 6 months. So if the proper channels are going through, if the administration wants to submit a new ordinance after they have done their due diligence and reached out to stakeholders, that item can be docketed. It would go through the process of having a public hearing here in the city council, and it would take 2 passages for that if it was passed. Each time, residents would have an opportunity to speak for or against the particular ordinance. If that is not done within 6 months, we can come back here and vote to extend the moratorium, to end the moratorium, or start over with something different. But I believe at this evening, this is a good compromise. This keeps the discussion going. It keeps everybody involved. It is back to the drawing board. There's a recommendation from the committees earlier this evening to withdraw the original solar ordinance, so that if this council seems fit to follow that, that is gone. So any new ordinance would have to go through the entire process again, meaning it would have to be docketed, it would have a public hearing, it would have to be advertised, and it would have to take 2 passages. But this evening, I need to stress one more time, we can only discuss PCO 34-21, this moratorium on solar projects. Please note that this is for first passage, and it will take 2 passages to enact. So this is the first time it will be heard this evening. So those are just my outlining comments that I just wanted to make. Are there any questions from members of the City Council on PCO 34-21? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I understand that the ordinance would require 2 Is my mic on?
Yeah, it's better.
Oh, very good. Okay. I understand that the ordinance would require 2 passages and that the next city council meeting would be November 1st. I understand that the moratorium under its language would go into effect on November 1st. So a question for our city council solicitor: if the ordinance is passed on for second passage on November 1st, would that mean that it would go into effect as of that day, or would there be any delay? As I understand that typically ordinances do not go into effect immediately due to publication requirements and the like.
Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Councilman. You are correct. The item before us is down for first passage. It is a traditional change to the Code of Ordinances, which requires 2 passages, and the proper publication timeline that follows second passage in order for it to be fully enrolled.
In that case, a follow-up question: would it be possible to essentially accomplish the exact same goal through the passage of a resolution, or does this particular type of legislation, would it be required for us to pass it as an ordinance?
Thank you, Councilman. The approaches that have been defended in other communities to fully enact and survive any challenge have been done via an ordinance, a change to the code itself, not to the zoning ordinance chapter or appendix. I am not aware of anyone achieving this via resolution.
Thank you. I would agree with your assessment. My concern is that if we were to try to pass this sort of legislation as a resolution, although that it might seem like it would be faster, it would really open us up for a challenge in the courts, and then that would just be an even bigger mess that we can't just accomplish through a resolution what requires an ordinance under our city charter and under the state laws. So thank you for your evaluation, and I completely agree.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other council members have any questions? Councilman Gephardt.
Thank you, Council President, Solicitor, and to the city. This is good progress. I think that for those members of the public that have followed this from the beginning, as many of us have, through all of its bumps, a change in planning leadership, sort of one ordinance that we heard, evaluated on its merits, and then was sort of pulled back, and then change public meeting that I see many familiar faces here who were there a few weeks back, and then to see action come out of it. I think it makes me feel like the public has been heard, and that we've arrived at something that neither shuts down the interests of business, but also does not shut down the interests of the public. So this feels like a worthy compromise, and a sort of a breath of fresh air in terms of giving us adequate time to come up with the right solution for all stakeholders involved. Just a couple, I'm a process guy, so forgive me getting into the details here, but just thinking about from November 1st or November 2nd or whenever this were to become enacted, and then until there were some future ordinance for us to evaluate and hold a public hearing on, just want to think through the steps of what needs to happen. And I know that planning director's here. Maybe I can, I'll start, and then if I go astray, would love to hear where I have done such. But I think a couple things need to happen here. One, we've identified that there's an ordinance related to taxation, to a tax exemption around solar that we'd like to clean up as part of the cleanup process. There's some vague language in there that could be interpreted that solar projects could be exempted from tax. That was not its intention. I think that's one of the items that's on our to-do list in this 6-month period. Second is, the city has a detailed, comprehensive plan that speaks to land use, that speaks to economic development activities, and that sort of guides our decision-making process in the planning department, in the planning board, and helps sort of speak to what is in the best interests of the city. And so one of the things that's been discussed is that in this period of time, that we would take a moment to look at the comprehensive plan, which today, if you do a Control F in that document to find, and you type in solar, you will see it appears one time, which is only to say that the city should look to have solar on some of its buildings to cut down on energy costs, be more green, et cetera. But really doesn't speak to where and when we'd like to see solar development. And so given that document provides sort of roadmap to what we'd like to see, and everyone, developers, the public, the city look at that, the board uses it to make the determinations on zone changes, et cetera. One of the things we heard at the public meeting was, okay, so you change the use table and you say, no, you can't do this in open space or city-owned land or residential, but what stops someone from requesting a zone change? It's well within their right. Well, part of the process when requesting a zone change is ensuring that zone change is compatible with the comprehensive plan. So one of the things on our to-do list here, or the royal we, is to look at that comprehensive plan and to make sure that it addresses where we would and would not like to see this type of development. So there's a process that goes with that also. And I think that starts with the planning director writing some amendment to the comprehensive plan, that going to the planning board to be reviewed and approved, that coming back to the council to be heard, 2 passages on that, then going up to the state, and then they will sort of give their blessing on it. And then we come back, and some of these things can happen in parallel, right? We can be getting public input on a solar ordinance at the same time that we're working on some of these other things. But let's remember that, in 38 days or something, it's Thanksgiving, and then it's Christmas, and then it's New Year's. Busy time of the year to get things done. So I just, so what I do naturally, I put this in a project plan. I throw in all the dates of, because the planning board can't just meet whenever they want. Their meetings are laid out on certain dates, and we don't just meet whenever we want, or we have set dates for our meetings. So these things have to kind of happen in order. And when you plot them out, if those are in fact the correct steps, which maybe the planning director can correct me if I've missed anything, then it is relatively reasonable that if all those things happen in order the way we plan them, that 6 months is sufficient. There's also, as I mentioned, there's holidays, there's time, there's other things that come up. So I would just put out there for discussion, Council President correctly pointed out that we certainly can talk, that we certainly, if we needed more time, can come back and extend the moratorium. I would just say, if there was appetite to discuss having a little bit more time, that would certainly be plenty of buffer. But I do think that it's reasonable that we could get this done in the 6 months. But, can't see the future, can't predict the future. We know that things take time, especially in government. So in the interest of just the efficiency of this body, knowing that the ordinance itself says, if we arrive at an ordinance, at a solar ordinance, then the moratorium, and we pass that solar ordinance, the moratorium would just go away. There might be some merit to extending this a bit to give us sufficient time to make sure that we don't have to go through this whole exercise again of 2 passages just to extend by a month or 2 months or something like that. So I know, we've referenced a lot of what other municipalities have done when they've gone through this exact same challenge. And I think Cranston started with something like 9 months and went to a year, or 6 months to 9 months. So I would just put out there that, I would be open ears if someone were interested in extending this to 9 months, knowing that if in 3 days we were at an acceptable solar ordinance for the public and for the city and for everyone involved, that this would phase out on its own. So I would just, I'll leave it there. If the planning director wants to correct me on anything, but those are my thoughts at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the council? Councilman Ricks.
Yes, to address Councilman Gebhardt's discussion of potentially extending the moratorium to a period of time that's greater than 6 months, I would be on board with that, considering the general requirement for us to have 2 passages of an ordinance, considering the timeline of the holidays and so forth after that. I think that it may as well, for the economy of the council and for the public, everyone to plan ahead. And given other cities and towns' experiences, where I believe that the city of Cranston did have, if I recall correctly, a 1-year moratorium, I think that it would be reasonable to have, say, a 9-month moratorium at this time. So in that, so as not to steal anyone else's thunder.
I would wait before we make any amendments or anything. I want to hear from everybody, and then I do want to open it up to the public, and then we will have opportunities for members of the city council. I want to keep it so everybody knows what we're talking about on the one thing, and then we'll come back for any motions. So I see you going that way. All right. Councilman Sinapi.
I got 2 things. First, though, a question for the solicitor. Isn't the reason we went with 6 months at a max, doesn't that have to do with the ability to challenge a longer time frame?
My understanding of the timeline is that whatever the council looks to set needs to be reasonable within the activities that the purpose of the moratorium needs to be set forth. So the 6-month discussion was presented in the drafting process as a point to bring before everyone. And it is up to the council to advise if the 6 months matches the parameters for which the moratorium needs to move forward. It can be extended via the same ordinance process. For example, this runs through April 30th, but at some point in February or March, if a new ordinance is ready, the council likely would be dealing with that at the same time. And if they are not ready, it could equally be extended by a subsequent ordinance as well.
And so as far as the ability to challenge it legally, it has to be reasonable. I would find it hard to understand how we'd be able to win the argument of reasonability on the topics of the comprehensive plan and whatnot, given that we were ready and willing to pass the prior one without modifying those. Not to say that we shouldn't take our time and do it right, but I think we have to be careful as far as what we consider to be a mandatory part of the process if we didn't consider it one before, given that someone could correctly challenge it on the basis of you can't pick and choose when something's reasonable.
The guidance for you, the members this evening is that whatever length of moratorium you are looking to enact needs to be sufficiently justified in the eyes of the tasks that are expected in the meantime. So you want to make sure that there's a logical nexus between the time that you're asking for and the tasks that are anticipated to be completed. As Councilman Gephardt had noted, varying things that procedurally he would like to see be done. He laid out a few of them.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, first of all, I want to commend everyone here this evening, as well as my colleagues on the council, as well as the mayor, for putting forth this proposal for the 6-month moratorium. Certainly, as Councilman Gebhardt has stated, the voice of the people has been heard. I would completely support an amendment for a 9-month moratorium. And I don't think that's unreasonable, because what we're talking about here is, it's not just solar panels. It's about the future of our city. It's about the future of our people. It's about our children, our grandchildren. It's about the people that come after us here as elected officials, long after we're gone. This is, in my opinion, a life-altering decision. This is a decision that could have an effect, one way or another, on our environment. Whether we agree or not on the impact that the solar fields would have, certainly would end up with a different conclusion, depending upon who's evaluating it. But I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind that this decision that this honorable body will be making will have an impact on our quality of life, on our environment, for future generations to come. It will also have an impact on our financial situation here in the city of Warwick. I originally had raised the question, I think it was at the first meeting of this solar ordinance, regarding the solar tax credits. And as Councilman Gebhardt has indicated, that has certainly come to the front of the issue. To say that a decision like this needs to be made in a narrow time frame, when we've heard over and over again, other communities have gone through this process again and again and again, and some still haven't gotten it right. That's a concern. It should be a concern for all of us, and I know it is a concern for all of us. We all want to get it right. The window of 6 months seems to be a window of opportunity that could be accomplished, but it doesn't allow for a hiccup. It doesn't allow for a sidestep. It doesn't allow time to hear all of the parties' input. We're hearing it now, but we've only been hearing it for the last several weeks. Imagine the things that we can learn if we sit back and listen to what other people have. What we can learn by listening to what other communities have done wrong and what they've done right. There's nothing wrong with saying you had something wrong, you didn't get it quite right. That's what makes you better. I think to take that time is prudent upon us as elected officials to do that. And I realize we need to have regulations on solar panels, solar fields, call them whatever you'd like. I realize that we need regulation on that. Because as the saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I know this council is absolutely determined in all of its efforts to get it right. And if it means we need to take a little bit of additional time to ensure that we get it right and everyone is on the same page, we protect our environment, we get the benefits of solar, and we protect the future of our city and the people that are going to come after us, then let's take the time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other questions for members of the council? Hearing none, is there an objection? This is under, this did not go through committee, so members of the public have not had an opportunity to speak on this. I need to ask, is there an objection to opening this up at this time to get questions from the members of the council, members of the public? Okay. Hearing none, are there any members of the public that would like to speak on PCO 34-21? If you are, please come to the podium here. The Sergeant of Arms will assist you here. When you come to the mic, please get right close to the mic. We need you to identify yourself for the record. And we ask that you keep your remarks brief to allow as many people to speak as possible. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, President McAllister. Good evening, members of the Warwick City Council, everybody here tonight. Also, Mayor Picozzi, if you're listening in remotely. Also, members of the community who are all here tonight. First of all, I want to thank the mayor and Mr. Kravitz for sponsoring the information workshop that was recently held. And I also want to